I don't know how close you've been following what I've been doing here, but I've basically, in my retro gaming stuff, gone back to the very first machines that I bought, the Master System and Genesis and so on, the NES and all that stuff, to some of the latest old school video games machines that I got, including the 3DO up to the Jaguar, or rather, not the Jaguar, the Virtual Boy. Not that it's the same difference, I'm just saying. Speaking of Jaguar, this is what this video is about, and that is, with all of these games that I've purchased, all these games machines I've purchased and spoken of, you'll notice that there are some glaring omissions. There are some that just they're missing. For someone with such an obviously full collection, certainly not complete, but full collection, it begs the question: well, if you're going to spend money on the 3DO and 32X, why aren't you going to spend money on, for instance? And here's my first. This is a video dedicated to the people I left out. And I'll give you an idea as to why, to some extent. In chronological order instead of the order in which I received them, because like I said, I, as of yet, have not gotten these consoles, and to be honest, I'm not likely to. I'll be honest. The first one would be the TurboGrafx. The TurboGrafx 16. Designed by NEC and then unleashed on the American masses, I think first in Los Angeles and New York in 1989. Not a bad console. In fact, I got a pretty substantial TurboGrafx collection on my Wii, actually. One of the most exciting things about the Nintendo Wii is it lets you download old school games for, in my case, for machines you never had. TurboGrafx 16 is one of them. The games were not bad. It was an 8-bit console that did a lot of really snazzy things graphically. And it was also, it came with an add-on later, a CD add-on that was the first in the industry. It actually predates the Sega CD. Unfortunately, one of the reasons it never took off is because they were touting, you'll find a lot of their ads dogging on Sega for, pretending to be, allegedly pretending to be the first CD games producer out there, when in fact TurboGrafx had CD games first, but they weren't counting on the fact that CD games largely sucked by most people's estimates. So, that didn't really work for them. The TurboGrafx does have some value, and particularly in Japan, where it's called the PC Engine, it has a remarkable library that we're sort of seeing now, again, via the Wii. There were so many versions of this console available that it gets really rather confusing. And that's how you dig nails in your own coffin, or hammer nails in your own coffin as a games developer, or games console designer, when you just start bringing out too many products that sort of fit with one another and sort of don't, and you just end up confusing the masses. If someone who's a diehard gamer is a little fuzzy about how things work, then the average Joe is. And so it never really took off over here stateside, but it does have a number of series and games on it that really make a lot of sense. Bonk, Airzonk, the Y's series, or I's or E's, or the Y''S series of RPGs. Those are big, and they had some good stuff. They did have some good stuff. Another machine that came out later that you may have noted, I did not mention as having, because I don't, is the CDI. The CDI, the Compact Disc Interactive from Philips. This is an interesting console. I have played it. And it was developed by Philips, and they were working with Nintendo, actually. When Sega released the Sega CD, Nintendo was thinking about getting in on the CD market as well, with a console edition, an add-on console component of its own. Nintendo ditched the idea and went ahead with, it just decided not to do it at all, but by that point, by the time they decided not to have a CD add-on, they had already worked out some kind of deal with Philips that enabled Philips to produce games for their console that they later did release with Nintendo's licenses. So you have, there are Zelda games on the CDI. Excuse me, the CDI. There are Zelda games. 3 of them, I believe, and they all are pretty weak. I have played Mario Hotel on it. Pretty weak also. There are a couple Mario games. Maybe 1, maybe 2. I think Where in Time is Mario is also on there, which also came out, I think, for the Super Nintendo. I don't know. I get confused about all that edutainment software. The CDI was largely designed as an edutainment device when it was conceived. And then later, too late, down the line, Philips decided they wanted to compete with 3DO in the CD space. And so it had a lot of the functionality of 3DO's machine, or the 3DO as a machine, including, video playback, MPEG-1 compatibility, and things like this. But it didn't really bring enough to the table. Though I will say, in my opinion, the best full motion video game ever made. I don't know if you're here. It's pretty windy out here. I'm loving it. I'm loving it. But yeah, it's a little chilly. The best full motion video game ever made, in my opinion, is called Burn Cycle. And this was a CDI exclusive. It was ported to the Apple and CD and PC. I do indeed have the computer version of that game, and I've played it a lot. The reason I might pick up a CDI is because it requires Windows 95 to run, and also an old Mac OS. And so on either of my computers, I can't get the game to work, to run. So I actually, in all honesty, as a retro gamer, I might still pick up a CDI at some point just for Burn Cycle, because I love it. I love it. Very Blade Runner-esque, but beautifully done. Simon Boswell, who did the soundtrack for the movie Hackers, provides really solid electronic music, and culturally speaking, it was awesome. You know, it came out at the time when, I remember when I was subscribing to Computer and Video Game magazine over, Computer and Video Games, CVG, over in England. They published this magazine, and in the same issue they had a review for 3DO's Road Rash, and CDI's Burn Cycle, as well as Chaos Control, which was a great looking but pretty average playing shoot 'em up. So you know, it's still the CDI sort of unlocks that unlocks that part of my childhood that I'm just fascinated with. It was too expensive to climb onto back then, but now is, you know, just disrespected enough for me to get for a pretty decent price. Though there is a pretty devout, of course, as always, there's a small cadre of gamers who love the CDI, which happens.